Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome back to Capes on the Couch, where comics need counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko and joined once again by my good buddy, Dr. Issues.
Hello, everyone.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. This week's episode is on Mr. Freeze, and I just felt like that was such an appropriate way to start the episode with Foreigner, since that is one of my absolute all-time favorite songs. True story, I once made a mix CD that was literally nothing but Cold as Ice, and I gave it to my sister as a Christmas gift because we love that song so much that I made it was like the same track 13 times, and she listened to the first one, it was Cold as Ice. She got to the second one, she heard the piano kick in, and she goes, "Is this CD nothing but Cold as Ice?" And I said yes, and she goes, "This is the greatest Christmas gift I've ever received."
Wow, man, I'm getting the chills just thinking about it.
Oh, that was bad. That was bad.
Oh, well.
Go take a chill pill.
All right. So I guess that's the way we're going to start things with this. And it doesn't end. I'm telling you right now, this is the way it's going to be the entire time. Okay.
Yeah, basically. So before we get really started in this, you can find us on our website at capesonthecouch.live. We are distributed through the Libsyn network, and you can check this show out on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and as of this week, iHeartRadio app. So that's a new way that you can find us. If you are on the app, just do a search for Capes on the Couch, and it will bring up all of the episodes of this show. We've got a Patreon that we launched 2 weeks ago. That is available at patreon.com/capesonthecouch, where you can donate at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels for a number of different various rewards. We want to give special shout outs to our patrons so far. First is my mom. Hi, Mom. Thank you for supporting us. We definitely appreciate that. And the other one at our president level is our friend Brian, who has gone just above and beyond. Not only did he subscribe to the show, he also got us some brand new recording equipment, new microphones, and a new mixing board because he got tired of what he felt was the substandard audio quality. And he was like, I just have to fix this. I have to resolve this issue. So Brian, just a million thanks. If, we could name the show after you, we would, or I don't know what else you want. I was actually thinking of taking my knife and carving his name into the side of the mixing board so that it was just like his name was on there permanently. So just so we knew it was that he was responsible for getting us the mixing board.
Brian, you are awesome. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fine. Maybe you don't want to kiss his ass as much as I do. That's fair. I can respect that. That's fair enough. You can email us, capesonthecouch@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. We've got some good Twitter interactions going lately. The Twitter feed is always kind of entertaining when I bring it up. At least from my perspective, because I tend to be the one who looks at it a lot, and I see a lot of the creators and the artists and everything that we follow as our account, and there's just some really cool stuff on there. Hopefully we can get one or some of those guests, those artists on our show as a guest at some point in the future. That would be kick-ass and super cool.
Oh, man, that would definitely make my life, aside from all the other things that I've accomplished. But, hey, it'll be up there.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of cool, this week's episode, I see the roll in your eyes already. I had to go there, man. Listen, at least I didn't do it in the Schwarzenegger voice. This week's featured guest, this week's keynote, the spotlight this week is on one Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze. There's just so much to say about the character, and you could say it all as Schwarzenegger. It'll be nice to talk about him for an hour.
Okay, since you're going to open with that, I'm going to go a little bit on a rant here. The way that the character had been developed, I think, was perfect for his affliction, the events that happened in his life. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, you absolutely killed it. And I don't mean that in a good way. I'm sorry. That really bugs me. That has bugged me for years. I felt like they did a disservice to the character. And I'm not blaming Schwarzenegger directly. I'm just saying they had an opportunity to do something a little different with the Batman movies with that kind of character, and it fell flat on its face. That is an abomination.
Well, Schumacher was not exactly known for being a great director. I mean, he started off as like a hairdresser or a designer, a makeup artist, something along those lines. That's how he got started. He was friends with Streisand. I think it was A Star Is Born is the film that he worked on. And then he had just a very kitschy, campy style to him. And they said, hey, you're the man who's going to help us bring the Batman franchise back on track after Tim Burton left. And they destroyed it. They absolutely killed it. I saw Batman and Robin in the theater. I paid money to see that. And it was utter, absolute garbage, just from start to finish. Bad puns. Apparently, George Clooney will refund you your ticket price. If you meet him and you tell him that you saw it and it was terrible, he will give you like $10.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's not like he doesn't have enough money to spare that he could certainly give that away. But it's just one of those interesting things. I was always entertained whenever I read that he would be willing to say, I'm sorry you suffered through this. Here's your money back.
Okay, so now that we've pointed out the flaws with how the character has been handled, maybe we can get into the proper mindset to deal with Victor Freeze.
Yeah, well, Mr. Freeze actually was created by Dave Wood and Sheldon Moldoff in Batman number 121 back in February 1959, and he was known originally as Mr. Zero. He was just kind of like a rogue scientist who spilled some cryogenic chemicals on himself, and like most Batman villains and members of his rogues gallery, he thus had a theme of cool, ice, snow, freezing. That was kind of his shtick. Then in the 1960s Adam West live action TV series, they renamed him Mr. Freeze, and there apparently his background, his real name was Art Schivel, and he was just kind of your generic mad scientist, but Batman was responsible for spilling the chemicals on him, so that's where his anger and hatred of Batman came from, as he wanted revenge on the Caped Crusader for creating that chilling effect it had on his life. But I'm sorry.
Yeah. So rather than play into the puns, I'm just going to say in general, how many characters, or fewer characters, I should say, will we have in the comic universe if chemicals didn't just randomly get spilled?
Oh, seriously, it's you've got Mr. Freeze, you've got the Flash,
Daredevil, toxins in his eyes.
Yep, Daredevil. He's got that's how he's blinded.
Depending on how you view the Joker.
Yeah, exactly. If he fell into the vat. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on and on. So now, much like Harley Quinn, and when we talked about her in her episode, how she was a product of the Batman animated series, and then that led to her being brought into the comics. This is related. It's similar. Mr. Freeze was not created in the animated series. However, the backstory and his entire characterization was completely revamped as a result of the animated series. The amazing episode called Heart of Ice, which won an Emmy. That's how good it was. It won an Emmy Award. It was directed by Bruce Timm, written by Paul Dini, and he got a redesign by Mike Mignola, who was responsible for the basic character design. Mike Mignola, for those of you who don't know, is the creator and artist of Hellboy. So he, I guess, was friends with Tim and Dini. And so the animated series episode, September 1992, Heart of Ice. I just watched it the other day again. I've seen it, many, many times. Just an amazing, absolutely stunning episode, and just proof that the Batman animated series is absolutely just one of the best TV series, period, of all time. Not just animated, but one of the best series of all time. Everybody from top to bottom on that show was just stellar. So in the episode, they re-engineer his backstory. So Victor Freeze was a scientist who was working for GothCorp, and he invented a cryogenic chamber to preserve his terminally ill wife, Nora, until she could be cured. I think it was a heart condition that she had. I don't remember if it was ever explicitly said in the episode proper, but all we know is that she's terminal, and that he hopes to freeze her until such time as he can find a cure, or other doctors can find a cure for whatever it is that is ailing her, and then they can bring her back and cure her, and then he can be reunited with his wife.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to point out, this is something that, although it's science fiction, it does have some basis in reality. There are medical procedures, for example, certain types of surgery where you can take a person's body temperature to, I believe it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees centigrade. I know I'm going to get people to correct me on that, but the point is, you basically put them in this suspended animation, and it minimizes blood loss, it preserves organs, and people survive this. As a matter of fact, it's a great protective factor. Cryogenics, for certain controversial cases, is now known to everyone because of Ted Williams' head, but, not everything has to have a happy, rosy ending just to make progress in medical technology.
Well, I was going to say it was a plot point in The Abyss when Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, or however you say her name, were swimming through, and he only had enough oxygen for one, and she was like, you carry me and swim, and the cold temperatures will help sort of keep me, in stasis until he can get her out. Now, granted, again, that's science fiction, and I'm sure that the character living in the abyss had something to do with it. I digress. The point is that, yes, there is some far-reaching basis in reality, but it's not entirely, this isn't just made up out of whole cloth. In any event, so Victor Fries was working on this cryogenic chamber, but the CEO of GothCorp, Ferris Doyle, I forget exactly, voiced by Mark Hamill, he came in to shut the experiment down, and in the ensuing scuffle, Dr. Fries got some chemicals spilled on him, and now he needs this Sub-Zero suit to keep himself alive. On a side note, again, talking about Mark Hamill, he was brought in to voice the CEO, and while he was there, they said, say, Tim Curry was supposed to voice the Joker, but he got laryngitis and couldn't really finish the episode. Would you mind stepping in and seeing if you can come up with a voice for the Joker? And that's how the most iconic voice of the Joker in animated and, dare I say, all of his appearances was created as a, hey, you happen to be here, let's see what you've got.
Yeah, I'm also going to point out, in a strange way, I would love to hear Tim Curry's Joker.
There are clips of it on YouTube. I think you can find some of the early audio did manage to squeak out, or somebody leaked it somewhere. Tim Curry's Joker is available, I think, if you look for it hard enough. But anyway, so Mark Hamill's appearance led to the Joker, but this episode revitalized the notion of Mr. Freeze. He'd always been kind of a third-rate member of the Rogues Gallery. He was around, but they didn't really do much with him. This story made him such a tragic figure that the comics, in turn, adapted the animated backstory for their timeline, and that has basically been, with tweaks here and there, that's been a large part of his drive and his backstory ever since. Later in the comics, he teams with Nyssa al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, to use the Lazarus Pit to revive Nora. He's like, I'll make a deal with you. I'll make you a Sub-Zero suit if you let me use the Lazarus Pit to revive Nora, except he doesn't do it exactly the way it's supposed to be. There's apparently a mixture that needs to be involved, and it needs to set for a bit, but he kind of got impatient and he put her in. And so she comes out, and now she's known as Lazara. And it's a situation where she came back wrong, to borrow the TV tropes phrase, and she basically left him. So now he's even further despair and despondent.
I still think that the main point to all of this is don't get involved with random chemicals, because bad things happen.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. So the New 52 reboot comes along. So now we discover more of his backstory. And because it's the New 52 reboot, everything is sort of new again, but not entirely. But we're going to pick and choose where we want to, I guess, carry things forward. As a young boy, Victor Freeze's mother fell through ice, and it helped keep her alive until help could arrive. And so he became fascinated with cryonics as a result. And then Nora Fields is a totally separate woman born well before Victor was even born, and she had been kept preserved for like 20 years before Victor Freeze had even heard of her. He did his thesis on her, and then he became obsessed with finding a way to bring her back. And it got to the point that he was working for Wayne Enterprises and was spending lots of money and trying to figure out a way to bring her back. And Bruce Wayne himself shut down the project. And much like the animated series episode, in the ensuing struggle, the chemicals got spilled on him and he ends up needing the Sub-Zero suit. So in that aspect, or in that respect, I suppose it's similar to the animated series, but I like the way that they make it so that Bruce Wayne is directly responsible, because he says, to Victor, you're going down a dangerous path and I can't have you spending company money on your personal vendetta, obsession, what have you. So he does a little bit of this and that. And then at one point he gets captured by the Red Hood and he gets sent to Arkham, and then he escapes. And then he says, I'm going to kill Bruce Wayne because he's the one who made me this way, and I'm going to leave Gotham with Nora, and I'm going to find a way to revive her, and we're going to be happy forever. And then he ends up getting stopped by Batman. And there's again, minor things here and there, but those are kind of the key points of the backstory. But in essence, it all comes back to that animated episode that really just re-engineered the entire character and gave him this brand new raison d'etre, whereas before he was this generic mad scientist who just, had a icicle fetish. And now he's actually given this backstory that makes you feel for him. And that's all honestly credited to Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, with a tip of the hat to Mike Mignola for the character design.
Yeah. I mean, basically, Victor has become cold to the world. I realize that there are going to be so many unintentional puns as there are intentional puns with this episode. And most of the unintentional ones are going to be me, and the intentional ones are all Anthony, so blame him.
I think that's fair. So, like I said, that's kind of his backstory, and it's been changed by the Batman the Animated Series. So now we get into the issues, and the first thing is, let's talk about his obsession and love of Nora. Now, again, in the animated series and in the pre-New 52, it was his wife, whereas now Nora is literally just some woman who's been in cryogenic stasis for 20, 30 years that he's become obsessed with. But this is his driving thing, his love and obsession for this one woman. And as a result of the chemicals, now he's frozen, and his heart is frozen as well. I mean, do we need to warm his cold heart with a hot island song, or is it, do we chill his hot heart with a cool island song?
Wow.
Yeah. I brought, that was like season 5 South Park, I think. Season 4, season 5. That's an old episode.
My goodness. Wow. It's unfortunate that Mr. Freeze has an icebox where his heart used to be. Hey man, if you can make random references, I can do it too. Okay. So the whole point of this though is that Nora was, and still is, the number one focus in his life. First, I'm going to focus on her as his wife, mainly because most people can understand that level of connection. You meet someone, you feel like you want to spend the rest of your life with them. That's fantastic. It's a wonderful feeling. Love is a great thing. It can help you accomplish so many goals in life. Unfortunately, Nora was taken away. I mean, literally taken away in a container, and it really sucked. But the point being, when it comes to death or divorce or any other major loss of a significant relationship, you don't have to get stuck there. Unfortunately, that's what happened with Mr. Freeze. He cherished every moment with her as if it was his last, and he acts like it's his last. He doesn't have any other motivations. And that's an intentional choice. It's not as if someone said, okay, well, now that she's dead, you have to end everything. He did that himself. And I know that he has this now physical affliction to go along with it. I understand that. But whenever someone gets to the point that they feel like they're at the top of how they can emotionally feel about something, and they're starting to come down, which is totally natural, then for some reason, I don't pretend to say that there's an automatic trigger for any of this, but in this particular character, he fell off a cliff and he didn't bounce back. That's what we're seeing here. It's a true tragedy. It's a shame. I mean, You know, we've all lost someone. We've all had that happen to us. You know, this has been talked about ad nauseum in pop culture about the stages of grief. I would have to hazard a guess that he's in the combination, I'd say, bargaining stage, where if there was some way to bring her back, which we know he tries to do, then everything would be A-okay in his mind. And what happened when he actually did it? Was it okay?
It was not.
Not even close. Which is another part to this, which is the anger that he suffers and he brings out towards society as a whole. But to focus more on Nora again, relationships change over time. So even if she hadn't died, and I do appreciate then the New 52 version, he made that connection himself. Nora never had any relationship with him. He was the one that puts all the effort, all the energy into this. First, it's on an intellectual level, and then it morphs into where he thinks it's something more and just super weird and whatever. But the point is, if things aren't going the way that they used to, but you could still have some sort of connection, it might be okay to go with that. You know, you have to let, you know, nature take its course. Whatever is going to be is going to be. You don't have to just fit that square peg in that round hole. He's created this schema, this image of Nora in her perfection, and nothing else is going to ever match it. Even Nora in a different form. That's a huge, huge problem that I'm not sure anyone's ever going to connect with him in the comic universe because of it.
He's built her up in any version, whether it's the version that he remembered specifically or the version that he idealized in the New 52 version. He has built her up as this ideal individual, and nothing is ever going to meet that. That's going to mess with your head. I don't care who you are. And that ties into, I guess, the second part of this is his misanthropic view of the world, wherein because he had this amazing love, and we'll focus again primarily on the version where she was his wife, because I think that's the version that most people know, and it's only been changed in the last few years. The version of Nora where she was his wife, he loved her, and she made him very, very happy. And now she's gone, and as a result, he hates everybody who is not her, and it creates such a contrast and a dichotomy between the version of him that he was before the accident, before she was taken away. I would even say it's before the accident. And I'll bring it into the animated series episode. If you have ever seen it, Batman is watching the tape of Victor Freeze where he's discussing what his treatment options are for Nora, and it's a situation where he's talking like a normal person. He's carrying himself like a normal person who very clearly cares for Nora and wants her to get better, but he's not this raging or cold-hearted individual. He's still very much human. It's not until the accident that causes him to shut down, to become hatred-filled, to become misanthropic, because that, I think, really is even more so than just Nora being frozen. It's the accident. That is the linchpin to all of this. That's the impetus to him making this change and becoming Mr. Freeze. But that hatred of mankind and that misanthropic mindset, if you can talk a little bit about what that is like and how to deal with that.
There's a difference between wanting something and not being able to have it, and having something and it being ripped away. We've already established that. In this case, though, Victor doesn't blame just the person that was involved. I know we have Bruce Wayne as one example, or the CEO of GothCorp as the other example that has been used time and time again. He basically views society at large as completely irresponsible, and therefore humanity has no value. So his hatred doesn't just extend to the idea that I want vengeance, which he says plenty of times. I know it. But that's the surface issue. The deeper issue is I've lost the ability to have faith in anything in life being worth it. That's the type of factor that is going to allow a person to use everyone as their plaything. They don't have to worry about consequence. They don't have to worry about emotion. They don't have to worry about relationships. In a weird way, it makes things easier because all of their efforts can be put towards whatever they consider to be meaningful goals. In this case, okay, fine. He held on to Nora. That's one. Destroy everything. Okay, that's another. I don't know. I don't think Mr. Freeze thinks about anything else. I don't think he thinks about golfing. I don't think he thinks about, like, oh, wow, I really went overboard by trying to freeze an entire building and kill people. Like, no, who cares? That's totally irrelevant. I know we've talked about nihilism before, but this goes beyond that. This is a situation where he just can't put forth the basic effort to try and connect. It's not just whether or not it's a good interaction or bad interaction. It's there. Forget it.
Well, I was going to say he's got a very singular focus, and we've discussed that with a couple of other characters. To have such a singular focus to the point of excluding literally everything else in life is incredibly dangerous. And to have the point of that focus be an individual is even more dangerous. And to have that individual not be someone who understands or can reciprocate any of the feelings that are being directed at them, this is entirely a one-way street. We are told that Nora, again, the married version of Nora, we are told that she loved him. He expressed on numerous occasions of how she loved him and that love. But if you think about it, it gets even more twisted in the New 52 reboot because she has no idea who he is. She has literally never met him, but he has built up this idealized focus in this singular individual who cannot reciprocate it. It's not even a situation where she could and chooses not to. She doesn't even know he exists. And that is an incredibly dangerous mindset to have.
Wow. I think you took it to a level that I didn't expect, and I certainly appreciate it because...
Well, I didn't even think about... I mean, we were going over the notes beforehand, and that was something that hadn't even crossed my mind until we started talking about it. And all of a sudden I said, oh my God, like he's singularly focused on one person and she can't respond. And that's stalkerish, dare I say.
Well, on one hand, yes, it could be considered stalking, but on the other hand, I think that's near psychotic. I'll tell you why.
No argument here.
Well, just do me a favor, Anthony. Turn and talk to that wall over there. I mean, just have a full-blown conversation with it. Tell it all your feelings, all your emotions, all your goals, hopes, and dreams in life. Tell me what you get back. That's a problem.
Does it count if I do that with the cats?
Well, at least that's a living thing that is responding to you, even if it just purrs and, walks away in complete indifference. At least you know it was alive and it's doing something. I'm not saying Nora wasn't alive, but the point is, at least in the way Victor is now trying to interact or trying to create this focus of her being alive and what she was, my goodness, I'm not exactly sure how anyone's going to be able to bring that back to a point where Victor will be able to appreciate not just that this is futile, but let's suppose that miracle of miracles happen and Nora is back the way that she was. We actually don't know what Nora wants. Nora can change, even if she were at that exact point the person that he remembers. People are dynamic. So it could, in theory, be a situation where Victor gets his wife back. She's absolutely stunning. She has the same personality, and now she has different interests. Or she wants to do something different than what they had originally planned together. Or she simply says, I don't love you anymore. I don't want to see that action happen. I don't. I know it happens with like Lazara, but that I actually saw that comic. It's not as dramatic as you think it is. It's just more like a mic drop. I'm out of here. you know? So it doesn't have that emotional impact. I'm saying, you know, if she were brought back the way she was supposed to be, that would probably be a disastrous scene. And that doesn't just apply to Victor Fries. I mean, these are the types of things that we do in our everyday lives. We think that things are going perfectly in certain aspects, but we don't know the other factors that are going to be changing it over time. And if we don't take that into consideration, we're setting ourselves up for some big disappointment.
Well, I think, you know, to some extent that has to do with the notion of agency, that Nora doesn't have any agency right now because she's unable to do anything. You know, she's unable to think or what have you. So Victor, by projecting all of these thoughts and desires and goals on her, is absolutely stripping her of any agency, because even if she comes back, she has to be the version of herself that he has built up. Otherwise, he's going to be so incredibly disappointed, and that's going to lead to problems. And that's never going to happen. Even if, as you said, she's brought back, she's still not going to be exactly what it is that he wants, because he is deprived her of any and all agency and ability to act for herself. And he's just setting himself and Nora up for failure.
This is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's worth doing because hopefully someone gets some benefit out of this. What was Nora's wishes in circumstances like this? What was her wish when she was this critically ill? I understand it might have been an emergency decision, but I mean, I don't know if she ever had a will or power of attorney or something, you know, like just to let Victor know if this is really the route that she wanted him to go in the first place. For all we know, she could have said, hey, if I was severely ill, just let me go. And he's been violating that this whole time.
That is an excellent point. And as an attorney who specializes in estate planning, you know, family trusts and elder law, that is something that I hadn't even considered until you just mentioned it. But you're absolutely right. Does Nora Fields have a living will? If so, was it ever, you know, considered? Did they ever have this discussion? Because we know she was terminal, but and I'm certainly aware that for the sake of the story that you can't foresee all of these types of situations, but that's why we're here, to think about all the stuff that writers didn't think about or chose to ignore or what have you. Did Nora Fields have a medical proxy? Did she have, you know, a living will? Did she have these things figured out in advance? And I do know that, and you and I have talked about this, Doc, that at some point we're going to have a special legalized focused episode, you know, and discussing estate planning in a universe in which death is not permanent. But similar to this is, you know, these characters that are in comas for extended periods of time, etc. What are their wishes? Are these things ever considered? So I hadn't thought of it until you brought it up, but that is an excellent point, and I think it will definitely have to be included in the conversation in whatever future episode we choose to have about these kinds of things.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've kind of banged the drum pretty hard here, so I think we can start the transition in terms of talking about treatment.
Yeah, so starting as we always do with the in-universe treatment, and given that we're in the DC universe and you have access, and we've brought this up to in prior episodes, you have access to telepaths and empaths and people with phenomenal abilities. What do you say to Victor Fries to get him to start to move on from Nora and understand that there are other fish in the sea, even if they're, you know, frozen fillets?
Okay. First of all, kudos for that shocking metaphor.
You're very welcome. I'm sorry I hadn't done an Arnold impression in a while. It needed to come out. Get down.
Okay. I think we've already mentioned that Victor has had trouble with the loss that he suffered. I think it would be a good idea to find a way to get him to connect with someone. I actually have someone in particular in mind that many people in our audience may say, who on earth is that? And I think there are going to be one or two that say, oh my goodness, really? Look up Captain Cold. Okay, this is a gentleman that also has suffered some loss, particularly his sister.
Well, he's in The Flash, I think.
Yeah.
So if you watch the Flash TV show, you probably know who Captain Cold is.
Well, the cold part is irrelevant. What I wanted to get at is he's a villain, but at least he's a relatable villain in the sense that he still finds a way to connect to people. He still wants to interact. I think we're at that point with Victor where I'm not trying to turn him from a villain into a hero. I'm just trying to get him to be a little more human. And so I think having someone that can relate to how they've lost someone and you know, just talk to them on much more of a peer level, on a personal level, as opposed to a professional level might be the way to start. Because I think anything of quote unquote authority, be that doctors, professors, the legal system, I think all of that is beyond him right now. I think he views that as drivel, absolutely inconsequential to his ultimate goals. But if he recognizes that there are other people, even if they're villainous, are trying to accomplish things in a way that still involves dealing with humanity on a daily basis, that might be the first step. I know that sounds like a horrible first step, but I really do think this man is that desperate where we'd have to resort to using villains as the number one target.
So villain team up would be a good, or at least, you know, a possible option for therapy and treatment for him.
Well, at least to start. I mean, from there, you know, maybe to get him more comfortable, you can put him in like the Fortress of Solitude and stuff, because that's always considered to be in an icy environment, you know. If he wants to be isolated and you want to talk to him, that's fine. But I'm just saying, I think it's one of those situations where it's going to take a lot. It's not something that I would sit down on a couch or anything, mainly because I would probably be freezing my butt off in the room.
That's probably fair. So now transitioning to the out of universe. Now, obviously, we can't get into the old powers and he has the ice gun and the suit and everything. But the notion of loss and the notion of isolation and misanthropy, I think, are certainly manageable and realistic enough that you could definitely see a situation where someone has suffered incredible loss, and rather than find a way to heal themselves through love and interaction with others, that they go the isolated route. How do you get through to someone who feels that after loss, particularly a great loss, a spouse or anything of that nature, that life is not worth living and could be potentially suicidally depressed or just, you know, withdrawn from society? How do you deal with that?
I didn't come up with this quote and I don't remember what it's from, but I think it's a great way to start. Don't be sad that it's gone. Be happy that it happened. In other words, you've had positive experiences and there's no law that says that you can't have future positive experiences. Now, that person is not going to be thinking future oriented at that point, nor should they be. But that's what humanity has actually done for centuries now, which is find ways to honor the dead or mourn whatever the loss is. It doesn't have to be death, but basically you do everything from scrapbooks to journals to now we have the technology. We have photographs, video, all the things that allow you to remember the person as you want to remember them. That's the whole point of mourning. Different cultures have different ways of doing it. You know, people have always heard the term drown your sorrows. Now, as a psychiatrist, I can't advocate the use of excessive alcohol, but the point still stands. You have to have outlets. You have to have ways, even if it is in isolation. Art and creativity is something that seems to spill forth from the soul. I apologize if I'm getting too esoteric here, but I can't help it. It's amazing what people can create when left alone with their grieving. Often you can attribute that to what is in your surroundings without other people interfering, ironically. People create music, people create drawings, pictures, you know, people create sculptures. It doesn't have to be like that, though. If you don't consider yourself to be an artist, we now have mediums of music, of comics, of books, literature, you know, so many different ways that we can connect with people that may have had similar experiences. And everybody listening to this, I know you can do this. Think about a time where you were grieving something and you put on that song. I don't care what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. That song that spoke to how you were feeling in the moment. And whatever the reaction was, you cried, you raged out, you know, whatever it is that you did.
Laughed.
Yeah, exactly. All emotions are fair game.
And sometimes, depending on the moment, you feel all of them simultaneously.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the point is, you do it for yourself, however long it takes. And from there, once it's actually out there in the ethereal, in the world, basically, usually you're going to get some relief. And it's going to take time. I know people are probably bored with me saying that so many times, like, oh my goodness, is there any of these things that ever do a quick fix? Well, I'm sorry, not really. But at the same time, the whole point is it's something that a person can do individually. It doesn't have to be someone sitting on a couch. It doesn't have to be with a professional. Obviously, if it's at the point where someone really thinks that life is not worth it and suicide comes into play, then yes, by all means, a professional should be involved. No question about it. But if it's not at that point, there are myriad ways to deal with this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Or if you feel like you're smart enough, reinvent the wheel. Whatever. Just do something that is going to be a tribute to whatever it is that you feel like you've lost. I guarantee you it's going to bring you closer to humanity as a whole. Dealing with misanthropy as its own individual situation, that's something that's a little tougher. That's the type of thing where it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. If the person is still functioning, if they're working, if they have at least a few people that they still consider to be valuable, then you cling on to those and you try and strengthen those bonds through therapy. But if it's a matter of the person feels like no one's worth it and it's nothing, oh my goodness, then we're talking hospitalization. We're talking whatever resources we can throw at them to just see if we can, first of all, protect society, because often these people are making decisions that are going to have dire consequences for the people around them, whether they intend it or not. I'm not saying that these are the true villains that are actively trying to destroy society. I'm just saying that they clearly have damaging consequences whenever they try and interact because of their attitude. So you're basically gonna have to rein it in. You're gonna have to give them the basic structure of what these interactions are supposed to be like so that there aren't horrible consequences. For example, if I'm yelling and screaming at people because, they were just trying to say hi to me on the street, and the next thing a police officer comes up and they're trying to defuse it, but then they're just another enemy and I'm starting raising my voice and then they have their gun drawn. Okay, you can see where this is going. None of that had to happen. Just getting them to acknowledge that you don't have to start a fight when there is none might be the very first place to start. And I know that's actually the similar start with the basics that I pointed out with Mr. Freeze as well. Don't try and make things overly complicated. You don't try and create Gandhi, a peacekeeper. You're trying to create someone that's not going to do damage first.
First, do no harm.
Yes.
Well, I know about the Hippocratic Oath. I figured it would just, when you were bringing that up, it seemed like the appropriate thing to say. First, do no harm, and then you go from there. I
was trying to avoid saying it only because I don't want people to feel like that is a responsibility of everyone in the world. I think it's a great tenet to live by, but I'm not going to just automatically push it on others.
Well, I think we would all do well to first do no harm. I don't see the problem in, having that as a basic tenet for all mankind to live by. First focus on, not hurting other people. And unfortunately, I understand I'm not naive, and I know that there are going to be situations where you have to hurt other people. But if you can try to avoid doing that, please do. So we've gone over the in-universe and the out-of-universe. Is your office temperature regulated? Do you maybe have to turn on the air conditioning a little bit, or?
I don't know how many BTUs these things require or what, I got the thermostat set low. Well, I guess we'll see.
So we're going to get Mr. Freeze on Dr. Issues' couch in the icebox, in the cooler, maybe?
Now, does that mean that my butt is going to get stuck to the chair? Because, that's...
Well, we'll see. We'll get you seat warmers. Anyway, Mr. Freeze on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Dr. Freeze. I'm Dr. Issues.
Hello, Doctor.
I know it's been a while, but I wanted to offer my condolences on your loss.
Your concern is noted, but like all the others, futile.
So what is it that you want to accomplish with this session?
The only thing I wish to accomplish is to be reunited with Nora. Nothing else matters. No one else matters.
Wow, she must have been someone special. What first drew you to her?
Her warmth. Her smile. She made me feel like no one ever had before. And no one ever has since.
Okay, and when she made you feel that way, how did you respond to her?
I gave her everything I could. Everything I ever was. And it would not have been enough to equal what she meant to me.
Well, you've already said my attempts are futile. But are you sure you want to discuss something that seems to have left you a long time ago? I mean, do you even understand what emotions are anymore?
I understand as few do, Doctor. It has been said that one doesn't know what they have until it is gone. Accordingly, I posit that I understand love and loss in a way that you never will.
Look, we all have unique loves and losses. Plural, Dr. Freeze. What I need to figure out with you is, how do we thaw that cold heart of yours?
There will be no thawing, Doctor. However, I invite you to join me in my cold world. After all, with you here, I will no longer be isolated. Doc, hang on. Let me go find a blow dry. You okay? Can you talk?
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
Oh,
all right. Let me get you a towel. Let me get you something warm.
so cold. Oh.
Okay. All right. Here. Have some cocoa. Have some hot chocolate, man. That should help warm you up a bit.
Yeah, okay. There we go. Good. All right.
Jesus, you turned blue.
Ooh, wow. I just can't imagine being that way for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, he deals with it all the time. You were that way for 15, 20 seconds. I'll get you some thermals.
Yeah. Does Icy Hot work that way, too?
I don't think so.
Okay. Maybe a hot toddy?
Could be. Now that could help.
Yeah. I just want to get drunk.
Hey, I'm not going to stop you. I ain't going to say no to that. So that's going to about do it for this week's episode. Next week, we tackle Scott Summers, Cyclops. And I know you already made the joke last week about going from Mr. Freeze to Summers. But, and it's really warm now, at least, here where we're recording. It's been a very warm couple of days. And as we approach the summer season, we're going to get into talking about Scott Summers. And then the following week, we have switched it up. I know we were supposed to follow up Cyclops with the question, but our president, Brian, has suggested we do Legion. So to sort of tie in with the Legion season 2 finale, we're gonna tackle that, and then we'll move the question. And that's one of the benefits you get for subscribing to the show on our Patreon is $10 a month gets you a guaranteed once a month you can pick a comic book character, and we will answer any questions that you have about that character. So if you feel like subscribing, you can go to patreon.com/capesonthecouch. We have a number of levels. At the $1 level, you get a shout out. At the $3 level, you get early access to the show. At the $5 level, you get a full, uncensored, longer edition of the skit. And as I just said, at the $10 level, you can basically pick once a month a character for us to do, and we will guarantee answer any questions that you have about that character. So that's on our Patreon page. As I said at the top of the show, you can find us on our website, capesonthecouch.live. We are distributed through the Libsyn Network. You can find us on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Doc, anything else you want to add to that?
I just have to make sure for next week that I am laser focused.
Oh. All right, that's fair, I suppose. If we're gonna get in a Cyclops pun, that's a decent one to get, I suppose. Oh, and also, as I forgot to mention, our Facebook page is very active. Our Twitter feed, Capes on the Couch, and you can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. We've gotten some great fan emails, and we always make sure that we respond to each and every single one of you because we love to hear from you guys. So please like, subscribe, leave a positive rating, review on whatever platform that you listen to us on, if you can, and please continue to interact with us in every way as we continue to grow and move forward with the show. So I think that about does it.
Yep.
All right. So for Dr. Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.